Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher, and today we're continuing our little series. The Pandas are coming! That's right, the Pandaria expansion is coming. In fact, it's about to hit the PTR, patch 5.0, which is going to be sort of bringing us up to date. We're going to get our new spells, our new talents, get people checking that stuff out. So check out the guides on my channel if you're not sure how your class will change. And what you're preparing for. Most of the classes are done now. We're just missing one or two in various different areas. But we'll get those done, don't you worry, before the Pandarias actually arrive. What we're going to be doing today is looking at the second part of the first video we did. The first video was about short-term getting your characters ready, selling everything you possibly can. And it was good to see that lots of you made thousands of gold from doing that and are in a better position after doing that process. So, now we're in part 2. We're looking for some ways of making long-term gold. Some of you guys struggle with gold, and that's understandable. Some people aren't sure exactly how do we abuse gold, how do we get gold, that kind of thing. Okay, so today we're going to look at ways of long-term planning. This is a way of making gold, but not right now. This is where we invest in something. You might be wondering, you might have seen the real world. Investing in stuff in order to make money in the long term is a very viable option to do by reading and trying to predict the future. It doesn't always work. Very important that you remember that, guys. It doesn't always work. But in general, it does work if we make sound, sensible, reliable decisions. So what are the kind of decisions we're going to be making today? Well, first of all, we've got a new class coming. The monk class is joining the game. As such, that monk class is going to be re-rolled by a hell of a lot of people. A vast majority of the player base are going to be at least trying out a monk, leveling it up somewhere, and those monks need some stuff. Now, lots of people, in a way, we sort of abuse the lazy. That's what we're going to be today. We're going to be exploiting the lazy and the ill-prepared. In fact, that's how a lot of businesses make money. They know people are lazy. They know people are lazy, and by making sure people are lazy, they exploit the weakness of laziness. We're going to do the same thing. It's how the real world works. Like it or not, that's how it goes down. So what we're going to do today is say, okay, monks are coming. What will monks need? What will all these new classes need, and what will the lazy not do? The lazy are unlikely to prepare things like glyphs. The basic glyphs for all their classes. Remember, even pandas. Pandas are going to be added to the game. Pandas will be re-rolled into all sorts of different classes as well. It doesn't have to be just monks. We can have Pandaria warriors. We can have all sorts of different pandas. Panda druids, whatever it might be. So people will not pre-prepare glyphs for that thing. So what we can do is actually get on the auction house and start scanning for things like cheap herbs. Very cheap herbs. In Cataclysm, the endgame herbs now are extremely cheap. There's loads of people farming that stuff all day on all night. And we have time on our side. We have time. So what I do is I go to the auction house. Every couple of days, I just say herbs. I just flick through anything that comes up blue. And I make a judgment on whether or not I think that will be used by anybody for anything. Could it be the fact that a lot of people are going to need professions? They're going to need to start leveling their professions. So we've got glyphs to think about, so we can buy a lot of cheap Cataclysm herbs, get ourselves a lot of ink, make ourselves a lot of glyphs, get those ready on a nice bank character. When Mr. Pandaria rolls around, we're going to stick up a ton of glyphs and watch them sell, because people want to try out the monks, want to try out various pandas, do the panda starting zone, all that kind of crazy stuff. People are going to be making pandas. It's going to happen. We know that for a fact. It's a nice, safe choice. Those people are going to want glyphs. We can make glyphs. They're also going to be leveling professions. So the other stuff that I do is I buy things that people will need for their professions. Now, there's a trick to this as well. You might see things like Fell Lotus, Frost Lotuses, good stuff that's used for alchemy. Very, very cheap on the auction house. There's a good reason for that. We don't use those things when we level a profession. We don't use them. So therefore, nobody buys them. That's right, nobody buys them. And the same goes for ore. If they're leveling blacksmithing, they're not going to be making a lot of pyrium gold stuff, true gold stuff, anything like that. They're going to want to get the levels, which means basic items, elementium, ore, all that kind of stuff, the big, bulky stuff. I made a couple of really nice purchases today. One was a little stack of Mountain Silver Sage, needed for every alchemist who is leveling alchemy. They need that. So we're going to buy that really cheap now. And when Mr. Pandaria rolls around, we're going to sell that for a hell of a lot of money. That's right, we're going to probably triple or quadruple the price we paid for it. We also look at things like mithril. Mithril is required throughout the universe for blacksmiths. They need tons of mithril, like 400 or something mithril. If you see anything that's green, you should have had your auctionator mod working for the last few weeks since we released the first video. As such, you should now have a good idea of what's cheap and what's not on your server. Anything that is blue, just go ahead and pick it up. But be careful, don't pick up stupid things like strangle kelp, not really used by the alchemists while leveling. Pyrium, very cheap, not really used by the alchemists while leveling, or the blacksmiths. Same with true gold, things like that. What you want to be looking for as well is leather. Leather is an absolute pain in the ass to level leatherworking. As such, not a lot of people are going to level leatherworking. That's not easy to say. But if you do see stuff like heavy leather going very, very cheap, heavy leather is a nightmare for leather workers. We might see leatherworking become a really powerful profession and people are going to want to re-roll it. Things like that. Very, very important, guys. The other aspect we're going to look at is bags. Every new character needs bags. And you know what? Netherweave bags from back in the Burning Crusade are the perfect item for you to make. In fact, I'm going to whip a few out and stick them on the auction house. I could pick up a stack of Netherweave cloth, very, very cheap, and then turn it into Netherweave bags and sell it for triple the price I paid for the materials. Triple. It's not a lot. It's about 30 gold. Hell, 30 gold in my pocket is better than 30 gold in anyone else's pocket. That's how I believe. And what you want to do is start stockpiling these bags. You want to get some on the auction house now. You can still turn a nice little profit on it. But what you want to do is have at least 100 to 200 bags ready for when Mist of Pandaria launches. And then flood the auction house with them. Get them up there. There'll be other people competing with you. That's for damn sure. And if you want, why not wait a week or two before you start putting them up? If that's your choice. It depends how long you're prepared to sit with all these items in your bank waiting to be sold. If you want to, just stick them all up and then ignore it, go and level. When Mr. Pandaria launches, stick everything on the auction house and then go and level and do whatever you want to do. Come back in a couple of days, check the auctions, rip all the stuff off and then relist it as well. You will sell it. It's still selling to this day. People love making alts. This stuff is still selling now. When Mr. Pandaria launches, we're going to have tons and tons and tons of people all waiting to buy this stuff because they haven't considered it beforehand. They don't have things prepared. They don't have a bank full of glyphs and a load of bags ready for their new character. At most, they're going to have their heirloom items. So there's not a lot of money to be made in enchants. Don't make low-level enchant scrolls. You may sell some. Probably not. Probably not going to sell too many because people tend to have almost a full set of heirloom items and the one or two slots that don't have heirlooms in, they're literally just going to fill it with whatever leveling crap they may pick up along the way and replace it as they do. What you will sell, however, is enchanting materials, things like strange dust, illusion dust. I picked up some infinite dust very, very cheap. Infinite dust, they need hundreds of that stuff while they're leveling enchanting. Hundreds of it. But they need it when they get to around TBC level enchanting. Most people actually cap their characters before they start doing their professions. It's a very not wise decision in my opinion. But that's what most people do. Again, purely out of laziness. I like to level my professions as I'm leveling. It's always helped me. It's always made it very, very cheap. But people don't do that. So what they will do in a few weeks, probably 2, 3, 4 weeks after Mr. Pandaria launches, they're going to start doing their professions. That's when you want to start spamming the auction house with all these very cheap materials that you've picked up. The thing to bear in mind is that right at the moment, everybody's flooding the Cataclysm zone. So Cataclysm ore, Cataclysm herbs, very, very cheap right now. Cataclysm enchanting materials, not so cheap due to the way the system works now. Heavenly shards, sure, they're pretty cheap. Everything else, not so much. So I wouldn't worry too much about Cataclysm enchanting materials. I would definitely look to pick up lots and lots of Cataclysm herbs because they're stupid cheap at the moment. You can pick up a stack of 20 for about 20 gold. Very, very cheap. You know why? Because when Mr. Pandaria rolls around, people are going to want to get their Cataclysm leveling in alchemy done, or Cataclysm inscription. Inscription is going to be much more powerful in Mr. Pandaria. They will need those herbs. The problem is that there isn't hardly any people in the Cataclysm zones anymore. The auction houses have been sapped dry of all this stuff. Now you have it in your banks ready to go and you picked it up at a fraction of the price it is worth now, and you can relist it for triple, quadruple the price, and people will buy it. People do not want to farm. They do not like farming. It's boring, it's tedious. They would rather pay 100 gold for a stack of herbs than spend an hour farming 20 herbs. That's just a fact. They just don't want to do it. So you go ahead and relist that and make a lot of money. So this is part 2 of what we want to look at. This is long-term investment. We are looking for things people will need in Mr. Pandaria that is readily available now. And Cataclysm stuff is super cheap right now. Super cheap. So pick it up, stick it in your bank and don't worry about it because in a few months it's going to be worth a hell of a lot more. And don't try and clean out the auction houses. That's not what we want to do. Look at what I'm doing in the background. I'm just picking up 1 or 2 items, just a couple of things that appear either blue to my auctionator or green. I'll pick up a few of those and just stick them away for a rainy day. And by the time Mr. Pandaria rolls around, I'm going to have a lot of materials ready and raring to go. And I'm just going to relist them whenever I feel the time is appropriate. Alright guys, that's part 2. Next week we're going to be looking at preparing your character to level. Very important, there's a lot of preparation to do for leveling so you can have a nice, smooth and fun experience while you're leveling. You're not worried about stupid crap along the way. You take it easy, ballers.